Ciao everyone, welcome back to another slow fashion video. Today I'm going to be sharing some habits that I learned and picked up in Italy that I'm going to be keeping with me as I transition to living in Canada again. I spend extended amounts of time in Italy because while I was born and raised in Canada, my parents are Italian and I do still have family there. I truly believe that these lifestyle habits not only have an impact on our mental health and well-being, our physical health, but also these great slow living habits can impact our style. Introducing more walking in my day. The passeggiata is this Italian tradition or habit of going for a leisurely walk after dinner. Usually happens at night in the summer, but even in the winter, Italians will often go for a walk after they've eaten. It helps them digest, but it also acts as a wonderful form of social time. Yes, Italians walk more than the average North American, particularly because of their urban planning, the culture, the public transit that's available to them, but they don't walk any more or any less than, I would say, any other European city. What encourages Italians to walk more is the habit of the passeggiata, and that is rooted in being in community and being social. In small towns, the passeggiata is very much almost like a fashion show. It's the best people watching, but it also does help you get your steps in and keep your body moving. The daily ritual of the passeggiata in Italy was beautiful. I would often do it on my own and there was a vibe, there were always people out. Here in Canada, my walks are a lot quieter and they don't always happen at night. Even if I'm walking on my own, I make it a point not to have anything in my ear. I take these walks as moving meditation, moments to reflect, to just be present and aware of my surroundings and my environment. I am a little ashamed to admit that while working here in Canada, I would rarely take lunch breaks. In Italy, for whatever reason, I was compelled to take a proper lunch break. My lunch became my biggest meal of the day. And not only would this be the biggest meal of my day, but I would actually stop a half hour early and take time to cook. And then I would sit down and eat my lunch. And that was beautiful and wonderful. It gave me the opportunity to do something different with my brain. I found myself coming up with my own recipes or variations on recipes, testing out new flavors, new flavor combinations, and just discovering foods that I had eaten all my life, but how to actually cook them. Now, I'm not gonna lie, in Italy, I was so much more excited to cook because the ingredients were so fresh. Spinach still had dirt on it. Mussels were harvested that morning from fishermen I had seen on my morning run. Even though I don't necessarily have that in Canada, I want to maintain the playfulness and creativity that I allowed myself during that midday break. I discovered the importance of completely taking myself out of whatever task I was doing and giving my brain another creative project to work on, even if it was short term and even if it resulted in me completely polishing off and destroying the project. Taking this midday break was nourishing for both mind and body. Since we're on the topic of food and eating, this next Italian-inspired habit is to eat seasonally. In Canada, it can be hard to eat seasonally all year round. All types of produce are available to us at all times. In Italy, when I was looking for cime di rape at my local fruit and veggie vendor, instead I got spinach or chicory because that's what was in season. While this was frustrating at first, I grew to love it. It forced me to discover new ingredients, new ways of cooking them. Ultimately, these fruits and veggies were far more flavorful and rich in nutrients because they were in season. In a world where climate change is eroding our topsoil and the nutritional value that any food gives us, eating local and seasonally as often as possible can have positive impact impacts on our physical well-being. I am no nutritionist. I don't know anything about biology and food, but I do know that when I listened to my fruit and veg vendor about what was in season and what came from the nearest farm, that my meals tasted really good and I felt really good after them. I think it's important to be realistic about bringing these Italian habits into our daily life. The reality for me is that these markets and local produce vendors aren't anywhere within my vicinity, and public transport where I currently live sucks. So I'm gonna take a car to go to these places. I literally don't have time to spend 2 hours on a bus just so that I can shop seasonally or locally. I'm telling you this because I think there is so much content on the internet that makes us feel like we are not doing things right, or that we are inferior for not eating locally or for driving to our destinations. But look, we need to do the best we can with the knowledge that we have and with the time and financial resources that we have. So my efforts that seem virtuous of shopping locally is very offset by my very North American habit of having to use my car to get to these places. So take what you need, do the best you can. I'm an introvert and I worked a lot when I was in Italy. My work is very solitary. So much of Italy is designed around being social. For example, the daily ritual of the passeggiata, the morning coffee at your local cafe. Yes, you would have your coffee at home, and a lot of Italians still do. You typically have your coffee standing up at the bar amongst a crowd of people, whether you know them or not. For me, as someone who works in a very solitary environment, this was a really neat opportunity and experience just to connect, be in community, see how people communicate, see how people dress, see what their morning rituals are. In Canada, we are so centered on convenience, on having things delivered right to our door. It does disconnect us a little bit from our humanity. It isolates us. Whereas when you go to your local cafe in the morning and you hear the random person next to you complaining about childcare and how expensive it is, or, you know, what they're having for dinner, it reminds you that we all have struggles, we all have joys, we're all dealing with the same things. Making more of an effort to be social and get out will also force me to get dressed. Not the kind of get dressed where I hope I don't see anyone, because of course you know you always do, but the kind of getting dressed where if I were to meet a random stranger on the street, I want them to leave that interaction feeling like they were recognized and seen. I also want them to leave that interaction thinking like, oh, she looked great, because I think we're allowed to be a little bit vain, you know? This brings me to my last habit, and that is to get dressed every single day. Even if I have no plans on leaving the house, even if my only plan is to go buy litter for Apollo at the pet store down the street. There is this beautiful cultural phenomenon that I've spoken about before on the channel called la bella figura. It is the Italian practice of always presenting your best self. Think about it. Italians appreciate beauty and craftsmanship. They have built their cities around art and architecture. The sheer appreciation of being able to look at something beautiful. It only makes sense that their outfits match their environment. And it only makes sense that they would want others to appreciate that art and beauty on themselves. And it's not about wearing the most trendy or expensive wardrobe. It's just about presenting yourself in your best possible light. And in a way, if you dress for your best self, then you kind of end up showing up that way, at least when you need to in your day. So these are just some of the Italian-inspired habits that I picked up. I still don't know where I will decide to settle, or if I will go back and forth between Italy and Canada. Either way, I will keep you posted. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here, as always, for your patience while I was on vacation. I really, really appreciated it. I'm so grateful that you're here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your evening. Maybe it's morning for you, wherever you're at, and I will see you in the next slow fashion video. Ciao!